All right, so Charles, we've got a really interesting sign here. Poverty itself, it makes us sick, it makes us commit crimes, it costs interest, it's habilitation industry. Tell me a bit about this and about your views on Canada and Ontario and Ford.
In November, it was a study done by Greenwich Incorporation, presented on TVO in December. It went on to say it costs taxpayers $3,000 a night to be in a hospital. Hence, I would assume it's St. Michael's Hospital. The one in Sudbury, it's around $1,200 a night. That is, yes. These are figures from 2017 reports. And being in a jail federally, that is, it costs from $350 a night to $2,000 a night, depending on security levels. And being in a homeless shelter, it's $200 a night. Yet being in public housing is only $14 a night. That's a start base. If you want more service like accessible or supportive or transitional, be a bit more, but not by much. So it's a no-brainer to house the homeless.
Okay, so housing for homeless is actually cheaper to the average taxpayer than homeless shelters, jails, and hospitals, which is where they end up.
Yes, precisely. If you don't do something about homeless, we'll end up in jail or in hospital more often. Like I said, $3,000 a night for hospital or $2,000 a night in federal security for jail. I mean, depending on the severity of the crime, that is, if it's a federal matter. I mean, provincially, it's $140 a night to be in jail, and this was 2014 figures.
Right. So either way, like the numbers are details, but either way, it's a lot cheaper for taxpayers to, take care of our homeless.
Yes, that's right. House the homeless, give us all better income to the poverty line. It's $2,000 a night, about give or take around that range, for able people, and then $2,500 a night for people with disabilities. Another $500 a night added, averaged out. For some, it's less than $500. For some, it's more than $500 for cost of disabilities.
Wow. Yeah. So $2,000 a night per person?
Yes, for the average able person.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
That's the official poverty line. Obviously, in Toronto, it's more. If you go regional base, $2,000 a night is averaged out across the province.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. And you feel that is still, or I guess the numbers are saying that is still cheaper than having homeless people be out on the streets and then wind up in jails and hospitals and shelters.
That's right, because a lot of homeless people, they want to seek shelter somehow, somewhere. If it's not available, then...
Wouldn't you? I mean, wrong.
They may commit a crime on purpose just to have jail during winter, let's say.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if I was homeless and it was between dying of cold tonight or mugging someone to end up in jail.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
They don't want it too serious so that they're in jail for years, but just serious enough for it to be during winter months.
It would be really funny to me if there was just like, how much what do I need to do to get exactly 2 months of jail time? Okay, and then just a bunch of homeless people do that? Sorry, that's very dark humor. But now, sir, I want to ask you something. You're saying we. Have you ever been homeless?
Yes, I was homeless for 45 days, but thankfully I was able to couch surf friends and family's places. I never had the experience of what it's like to actually sleep outside, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's very good. I'm very happy for you. I do also want to know, just for people who have never had their situation lead to homelessness, what led to that for you?
It's the community startup maintenance benefit that got downloaded to municipalities in 2012 under Delta McGuinty. That's what really got me more involved into the politics, and politicians just not do anything for social assistance. That really cut it off for me. What he did before that was special diet allowance, but it didn't apply to me at the time. I didn't qualify for it. It didn't dawn to me. And I just got more and more involved with the stats of homelessness. Years ago, I didn't care much about homeless. I used to think like anyone else, get a job instead of laying around. But I come to realize no one wants to hire them. Who the heck wants to hire a homeless person to begin with?
Yeah. So you would say that the way to solve homelessness is to get them jobs, or to assist their housing so that they can give them housing so they can clean up, so that they can not look homeless and then actually get hired.
Yes, that's right. What they need is more supportive housing and transitional housing. Reintroduce them back to society with supportive workers from different organizations, like the Kitty Mental Health Association, let's say. And it's just a way to introduce them back to society. Right now, they're not used to it. And maintaining a home is another one. Get help from a worker to maintain your home.
Right. If you haven't maintained a home in years, it's going to be very challenging to maintain a home.
Yeah, precisely. To do the chores you're normally supposed to maintain it very well. I mean, you're supposed to just do it. And I mean, to the homeless people, it doesn't tell them anything. Even like dental care and self-care, you got to introduce them back to that as well, in some instances.
That's intense. Now, sir, I want to ask, for yourself personally, and I mean, thank goodness you have the support system to help you get back on your feet. Obviously, some people don't, but what led to you being functionally homeless?
I got out of a long-term care facilities from after getting into a fight with workers and clients. At the time, I was on 17 pills. It had the side effects of thoughts of harming others, aggressiveness, hostile agitation. Someone tried to talk to me. I told them to leave me alone, get lost. If they didn't, I would get agitated and threatening. Yes, I served time in jail for 45 days prior, and then I got a termination notice from the facility, and I couldn't find anything anywhere. I stayed at my aunt's place, thankfully, while looking for a place, and all I could afford was rooming, $400 a month in a more poor neighborhood of Sudbury. I mean, that's all I could afford at the time, and during that time of staying there, I'd have groceries stolen from the shared kitchen fridge and so forth. It wasn't pleasant. And thankfully I got into public housing about a year and a half later. But even then, public housing, there's room for improvement. You got people with problematic tenants, let's say, such as from prostitution, addictions, not properly maintaining their homes. Infestation is the biggest issue I've had to deal with in housing. I had to deal with infestation for 8 times in 18 months from early August of 2014 until...
Of what? Infestation of what?
Bed bugs.
Wow. So yeah, bed bugs for the homeless. That's serious.
In public housing, it's not well maintained, the buildings. They should have had better maintenance. They were built very cheaply, and this is what you get for not building them very well.
Yeah. And it sounds like you had a job, but because of the cocktail of pills that you were on, there was an incident, and then nobody would give you another chance, and you couldn't find work, and that's what led to the situation.
Sort of. I mean, prior to having this cocktails of pills, I was epileptic, and I did brain surgery in London Health Sciences Centre. I used to just do odd-time volunteering here and there before the surgery. I rarely ever been employed from the age of 18 until age 23 when I had surgery. Wow. But to be honest, the brain surgery did a trick of getting rid of seizures and epilepsy, but in exchange I had to learn everything: walk, talk, eat, bathe. Was like a newborn in an adult body.
Wow. That is... I mean, those are all things that I take super for granted.
Yes, I've learned to appreciate the ability to walk, talk, eat, and bathe. It's just took me 18 months to recover from the time I had the surgery in 2007 of May, right up until fall of 2008, I'd say I started to get better and understand society and having workers to introduce me back to society.
Yeah.
And just participate in community activities and so forth. Just even getting used to going up to a cashier, making refunds. That was a lot for me. I had severe anxiety approaching a cashier. That was way too much effort for me to do at the time.
Well, and I mean, God, I love approaching cashiers. I think of myself as being quite charming.
Yeah.
But I've also never had to relearn how to walk, talk, and bathe. That's so intense.
Yeah, it was a lot of rehab required with the physiotherapists, the psychological therapy and speech therapy and occupational therapy to go through. I was on a wheelchair for 45 days and just rehab of relearning to walk with the physiotherapy was very frustrating. But thankfully, they've taught me how to do everything: the speech, the occupational, the psychological, and the occupational and the physio. Yeah, all of those.
Wow. And I guess, at the time, the healthcare subsidies that were the case allowed you to do that. And if Ford acts as a bunch of stuff, then people who go through what you went through, I'm guessing, would have a much harder time.
Yes, precisely. It's very frustrating, to say the least, to relearn everything. It takes a long time.
Yeah, I bet. Well, sir, listen, thank you very much for being part of Canadian Love. Is there anything else you want to tell us about? Anything you want to say to people who have never been homeless, never had brain surgery or epilepsy, never had to go through what you've been through? If you could say one thing to the average person who doesn't understand what it's like to be you, what would you tell them?
Don't give up. There's hope. Recently, I was diagnosed with diabetes. I went through a fallback. I relapsed and learned to deal with it all over again. Diabetes, like nerve pain, so forth. I don't let my disabilities get to me. I learned to cope with it and go through life with it. Don't give up.
You have gone through so much. I really appreciate the effort that you have gone through to be able to function normally. I'm realizing suddenly that I take a lot for granted.
Yes, it's very much appreciated to have the ability to just get on a community. It's, to me, a privilege in a sense compared to what I've had before. when you compare these things together. At the bottom line is why I came here is I want to spread the word around that poverty is a billion-dollar industry. Many people are taking advantage of us on low income, and this needs to stop.
Okay, so being taken advantage of by the industry of poverty, I've never thought of poverty as an industry. Do you want to mention what you mean by that?
I call it industry, but it's just the general public. Everyone on low income, we're being taken advantage of in society. From doctors to retail to you name it, like these capitalism are taking over socialism.
Okay, so the people taking advantage of the poor people are the rich, basically, or the ones who own capitalist organizations, or who?
Yeah, the wealthy 1% taking over our lives, pretty much.
Wow. That's intense. I guess you've really seen that firsthand. You've really felt that firsthand.
Yes, and I'm a victim of it. It's just like much of anyone else on social assistance or low income. We seem to want to be taken advantage of and get our money from these big corporations.
Right, so it's like you have issues going on, you're perceived as weak, you get taken advantage of.
Yeah, pretty much. That sums it up.
Well, shit, you heard it here. All right, sir, thank you so much again for being on Canadian Love. Thank you very much for being part of our show.
All right. Thank you so much.